What's up everyone? April here. Welcome back to my channel where we talk all things the Power Platform and Microsoft 365. Recently I did an introduction to Dataverse video, and after the great response I had to that, I did a poll asking you all what intro video would you like me to do next. And the overwhelming majority of you said Power Apps. Now, for all of you watching my channel, you probably know that I love Power Apps, so I was quite surprised to look back at my content and realize that I've never did an introduction to Power Apps video yet, so it's time to remedy that. I want to keep this as short and sweet as possible, but I want to cover what Power Apps is, the different types of Power Apps that we can create, some of the high-level concepts, and how to get started. All that coming up right after this. Well, first things first, what is Power Apps exactly? It's a no-code, low-code platform for building applications. And with Power Apps, we can build not only desktop applications, but also applications that work on your mobile devices and your tablet devices. All this being done without having to know a traditional programming language like, say, C# or JavaScript. And so describe how Power Apps works, how you're actually able to build applications with a low-code technology. I like to describe it as Power Apps as if Excel and PowerPoint fell in love and had a baby, and that would be Power Apps. And the reason that I say this is the design interface for Power Apps, Canvas apps specifically, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on, is very PowerPoint-like. It's a simple to use, Office-esque experience where you can drag and drop controls into the screen and build out the layout of your application. Now, the logic layer is really based off of Excel. We might have saw a previous video that I had, and I'll put a link to that up here, on PowerFX. That is Power Apps Canvas Apps low-code programming language, and is actually based off of Microsoft Excel's language that it uses for its formulas and expressions. So when you need to do some complex logic inside of your application in Power Apps, you could use an Excel-like expression to say filter data that shows from your data source. So that's why it's really the perfect marriage of if Excel and PowerPoint had a baby, that would be what the experience is like to create a Power App. And we'll take a look at how that works here later on. Now, Power Apps is part of Microsoft's Power Platform suite of tools. So with the Power Platform, this is a holistic suite of low-code technology that Microsoft offers to do not only low-code application development, but also to do things like dashboard and reporting with a tool that we have called Power BI, and to do things like building low-code chatbots with a tool called Power Virtual Agents. And the glue that kind of binds all these together is our workflow and process automation tool in the Power Platform called Power Automate. So that's the great thing about when you choose Power Apps to build an application is, by design, by choosing that, you also get to take advantage of all of the other functionality that we have in the Power Platform to do things like extending your application and adding in some business logic and workflow to it, in dashboard reporting and even chatbots. One of the other great things about the Power Platform and Power Apps is that it's not only a no-code, low-code technology, but you can also inject some of your code-first traditional development into the platform to extend it even further. So what we like to say here is it's truly a no-cliffs experience as far as what you can do with it and how you can extend it. And if you haven't caught my intro to Dataverse video, be sure to check that out as well, because the Power Platform sits on top of Dataverse and it's a key component of the Power Platform and Power Apps. So definitely check that out to get your 101 level primer on Dataverse itself. But one of the things that really makes the Power Platform and Power Apps even more powerful is the concept of something called data connectors. So we currently have about 500 different built-in connectors that we can use across all of the Power Platform. So this is our Power Apps and our Power Automate solutions, workflows that we create, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agents. And what this really means is if we were to say build an application the traditional way with some C# or JavaScript code, then anytime we want to integrate with various services, whether it be maybe Google Drive or Salesforce or Dropbox or Microsoft Office, whatever it might be, we would have to go through the process of coding in those authentications and integrations into those services. What the Power Platform offers, however, is a way for you to easily plug and play into over 500 different services without having to do anything except, say, drop that connector in and authenticate into it. So that really opens up the doors to the types of scalable solutions that you can create connecting to all kinds of different data. And these connectors are not only for Microsoft services. This is for all kinds of services. Of course, Microsoft services like SharePoint and Teams and Dynamics and all of that are supported. But as you can see here, we offer support through this data connector model for all kinds of services, like even competing services like Google, DocuSign, Adobe Sign, social media applications like Twitter and LinkedIn. So really the possibilities are almost endless because not only do we have all of these built-in data connectors that we can start using, but we also give you the ability to connect to your own internal services or other APIs that might be out there that don't currently have a connector. And we do that with something called custom connectors. So we give you the ability to take an API and make your own connector to that so that you can consume and write data back to that. And this data doesn't even have to be data that's on the cloud. We have something called an on-prem data gateway, which will allow you to create a connector and connect to data behind your firewall on a physical server somewhere. And this is one of the great benefits of building your applications in Power Apps is the time savings that you get. Because we don't have to worry about coding in all these various integrations, we're able to save a substantial amount of time that it takes to actually build the applications. Now we need to talk about the types of Power Apps that we can create. I do actually have a video on the types of Power Apps explained, but that video is more than a year old now, so I thought it was time for a refresh, so I'll just cover that here in this intro to Power Apps video. There are three main types of Power Apps that we have that we're able to create. The one that I probably most commonly talk about on my channel are Canvas applications. And they're called Canvas applications because it literally gives you a blank canvas that you can drag and drop and have complete control over the user experience of your application. So this would be an internal facing custom app because one of the concepts that we need to make sure we understand when we're talking about building applications with Power Apps is the scope at which that application is intended for. With Power Apps Canvas apps, the scope for this would be people within your company or your tenant where you have your Microsoft 365 environment. Power Apps Canvas apps right now are not something that you would take and publish to the Apple or Google app stores and put out broadly like that to several external users. These are for your internal business applications. But with these Canvas apps, as I said, we have complete control over the user experience. It's very PowerPoint-like, which we'll take a look at here in a second, where we can drag and drop different controls on the screen and get an app set up. One of the distinguishing things about Canvas apps and why they're so commonly used is that they have full support for those data connectors that I just mentioned. So if you need to build some kind of mobile application or desktop application that is maybe pulling in and surfacing up information, say from maybe your Salesforce system, maybe also information from Dynamics, ServiceNow, you name it, you need to mix and match a lot of these different data sources in one application, then the Canvas app would be your choice for that because we're able to mix and match the different data sources and use multiple data sources in our applications. Now, when we talk about Canvas applications, there's this concept of building a responsive application. And what that really means is, when we get down to it, is we build the application once and it's able to respond its width and height accordingly based off of the device you're on. So whether you're on a desktop, a widescreen monitor, or maybe you're on a more narrow portrait mode phone. Power Apps, out of the box, when you build a Canvas app here, it's not responsive natively. But we do have capability to make the app responsive. So we have support when you build a Power App. It will work on a desktop, on a mobile, and on a tablet device. But if you want to take it that extra step farther and make it truly responsive and optimize the experience, then we can do some additional logic and code in there to make that happen. The other cool thing about our Canvas applications is we have widgets and ways that we can embed these applications easily inside of your SharePoint intranets and inside of Microsoft Teams. Now, moving on to model-driven applications. Now, these are similar to Canvas apps in that they are internal facing for people in your organization, those tenant-wide organizational business apps. But where it differs is the amount of control we have over the UI and the type of data sources we can use. So model-driven apps are kind of what we call data-first design, and they're very tightly coupled to Dataverse. So how I like to describe it is model-driven apps are good for internal facing, kind of like database dashboard, admin panel type situations. So rather than dragging or dropping multiple controls, you start with your data. So maybe I want to create an application to see all of the data in my clients list and all of the orders that those clients have made. And to be able to easily manage that information, maybe I'll have a dashboard that I want to see of the orders that we have to date, things like that. Well, that's a good use case for a model-driven application then. So we do have limited UI control. It kind of configures the design for us when we point it to the different data that we want to consume and use in our application. We can do things like add in custom controls using something called the Power Apps Component Framework. So we do have a little bit of control that we can have there as far as, the colors and being able to put in some custom controls, but not nearly as much control over the UI as we have with Canvas applications. These model-driven apps, though, are responsive out of the box, so they will work on your desktop, tablet, and mobile devices without you having to do anything extra. And finally, we have something called Power Portals. Now, these differ pretty greatly from our Canvas and our model-driven apps. So Canvas and model-driven are for, mobile desktop applications, but Power Apps Portals are basically a way with low-code technology for you to build a website. So with portals, we're able to have even anonymous and external access, just like we would traditional websites with this technology. Now, similar to model-driven apps, the data that we actually surface up and consume inside of our Power Portals is going to be tied to Dataverse. So it, again, is tightly coupled to Dataverse, so you need to pull in data from there. We do have more control over the UI than we do in model-driven apps here, and that's because you can inject and use HTML and CSS in the Power Apps portals. And because of that, because we're able to have HTML and CSS and have a little bit more control over that, we're able to make these responsive as well. So that's kind of a high-level summary of the main types of applications that we can build in Power Apps and the use cases for each. So let's take a look at how we actually get started. Power Apps is part of Microsoft 365. So you will need the appropriate Microsoft 365 license to be able to use Power Apps. Most enterprise licenses and even some of the business premium SKUs include a version of Power Apps that you can use. I don't want to get too into the weeds of licensing here. There is a licensing guide that I'll put a link to in the video description, which goes through the ins and outs about how much all this costs and what type of Microsoft 365 license you will need to be able to use Power Apps. Generally, most E-level licenses and some of the education licenses include a base version of Power Apps. If you want to do some of the advanced or what we call premium functionality in Power Apps, like say using model-driven applications, using some premium connectors, then you'll need to pay for a Power Apps license. The way that we license that currently is either by application or by user. The by user meaning you can license a particular user for an unlimited amount of Power Apps applications. So if you're going to be using this for a lot of applications, that would be the way to go. Pricing was recently reduced for that, and that is $20 a user a month. And then the per app plan is you license up a single application per user. So if you're only wanting to push out one application or one or two apps for a handful of users, then that's going to be your cheapest route, which is $5 per application per user. Now, what if you don't actually have a Microsoft 365 license, but you want to try out Power Apps and see if it's a good fit for your application that you're wanting to build? Well, there's basically a two-step process that you can go through to get a complete Power Apps developer environment created so that you can start building applications and testing that out. The first step is going to be to sign up for the Microsoft 365 Developer Plan. This basically gives you a free enterprise license of Microsoft 365 that not only includes Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, but also all of the Power Platform applications. That's Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Virtual Agents. And the great thing is you don't have to worry about any hidden cost here. You don't have to buy a domain. You don't have to put in a credit card, anything like that. You just give some basic information and it creates a new development Microsoft 365 tenant. Now, once you have that set up and you go through the process of creating this account and you're logged into your new Microsoft 365 Dev Tenant, you can do one more step and sign up for the Power Apps Developer Plan. What this does is get you one of those premium licenses for Power Apps that I was talking about. That way you can test out all of the functionality of Power Apps, from model-driven apps to those premium data connectors and Dataverse and all of that. So this is something that you put on top of your Microsoft 365 developer plan. You can click the existing user option and you can actually add this into your dev environment easily. So if you're logged in already, all you have to do is going to recognize you. You can click accept, and this will go set up a Power Apps special developer environment for you with all of the premium functionality. So don't let the fact that you may or may not have a Microsoft 365 license stop you from trying out Power Apps. Now with that out of the way, let's take a look at what Power Apps looks like. So once we're logged into our Office 365, we should see on the left-hand side here an option for Power Apps, and that will open up the Power Apps portal. Another way we can get to this is by opening up a browser tab and going to make.powerapps.com. And this, you all, is where all of the magic happens. So from this one screen, we can build a Canvas app, a model-driven app, or a portal as you're seeing here. Now there are a few different ways that we can start creating an application. So we can start with our data as you're seeing up here. So if I know I want to create an application that is maybe tied to an Excel spreadsheet that I have created already, if I do the start from data option, it's actually going to create a simple 3-screen application for me. So you see it's actually going to show the different SharePoint sites that I have and my OneDrive. And I can look and see any Excel workbooks that I have, like this flooring inventory one, for example. And then it's going to show me the tables that I have within a workbook. So for this to work, you do have to have your data formatted in Excel on a table. So I have one table called flooring estimates, and I can click connect. And really here within a matter of minutes, this is going to create a fully functioning application for me based off of the data that I have in that Excel table. So you see when I do this, it's going to open up the Power Apps Canvas Studio, where I can have that PowerPoint-esque experience for creating an application. Now if we look on the left, we have screens. Screens are just how we organize and structure our Canvas application. So this is an example of a Canvas app. So as you can see here, we have 3 different screens. We have one screen called Browse, which is surfacing up the information and the data from our Excel table. We have a screen called Details, which is showing the data for a specific record in that table. And then we have a screen called Edit, which is actually enabling us to add data and edit data for a particular row in that Excel workbook. We can test our applications easily in the editor by clicking this play button at the upper right hand corner. And you can see not only can I scroll through all of the different data that I have in Excel, if I click on one of these, like this tile here, this marble, it's going to take me to that detail screen where I can see all the information about this particular item. And I can even click the pencil, which will take me to the edit screen so that I can override and make any changes. So that's a simple way to get started and kind of see the ins and outs of how a Canvas app works, is by doing the start from data and starting with some kind of Excel or SharePoint data that you might have already. And hopefully this looks sort of familiar to you. The look and feel is very similar to the Office applications or like PowerPoint. You see we have at the top here in the ribbon, we have an Insert tab. And this is where we can add all the different types of controls that we have available to us in a Canvas app. And these types of controls range from buttons and labels to different types of inputs like an HTML text. We can actually inject HTML and CSS into our apps with that control. We have rich text editors, pin inputs so that we can collect electronic signatures, and all kinds of other inputs like drop downs, slider controls, ratings, toggle buttons, checkboxes, all the typical controls that you would expect in a form or in an application. We have a concept of a gallery, which is what we're seeing on this page. A gallery is just a way that we can surface up a list of data. We also have forms, which is what you're seeing here on this screen. It's just a way to create a simple input form to intake data. We also have several different media controls we can take advantage of. We can add in images into our applications. We have a camera control to have an interactive camera to take pictures inside of our apps. We can embed videos and audio. We even have barcode scanning that uses your mobile or tablet's device native barcode scanning functionality to enable you to do things like do a quick inventory app and scanning those barcodes. We're able to record audio with a microphone control, view PDFs, and we even have integration with maps, being able to embed that, and mixed reality with our 3D viewer object. And then adding in all kinds of fun icons that we can use for different things like navigation between different screens in our application. And you'll notice a tab here for AI Builder. This is some additional functionality that we have as part of the Power Platform and Power Apps to infuse some artificial intelligence capabilities into our applications. So without me having to write a line of code, I can do things right out of the box like input a business card and have this pre-trained AI model that's part of AI Builder automatically detect all of the text in that business card and say add it to my Dynamics database. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see our data tab. This is where we can have the power to mix and match all kinds of data sources using those connectors that we have. So in addition to Dataverse, if we expand this connectors tab, we'll see all of those 500 different data connectors that we have. And we can add those into our Power App for anything from Twitter, as you're seeing, to Salesforce, Dynamics. All we have to do is search for the data that we want to bring in, the type of connector, add that into our app, and start using it. So here's an example of what a Canvas app will look like. So this particular application, I've optimized it for the mobile device, but it works just fine here on my desktop. So I have it open. I'm able to see a dashboard. I can book an appointment. So I have multiple screens with the calendar control. I can move through. I can find Open Desk. We have images that it supports. And the same app I can use and pull up on my mobile device. And that's done by using the Power Apps application on your iOS or Android device. Now let's take a look at a model-driven application. And one thing I wanted to point out here on the make.powerapps.com portal is we can easily tell the type of application we're using here on the right-hand side with this type column. So I can see these are some Canvas applications, and here's an example of a model-driven. Now, as I mentioned before, model-driven differs in that you start from your data and you don't have as much control over the UI. So if we say a new model-driven app here and click create, you'll see where the process differs. So first thing we need to do is give our application a name. So we'll create an app called Account Manager. And this is actually using some newly released designer experience for our model-driven apps. So we have kind of a new and improved interface for this. So it doesn't look too drastically different than our Canvas application. With this new experience, it looks a little bit more seamless. But where we can start is we can say add a page, and then we can choose the type of data we want to show. So in my case, for an account management application, I might want to pull in some data in a tabular format from one of my Dataverse tables. So I can choose this table-based view and form and click next. And this is where I said it's very tied to Dataverse. So it's going to show all of the different Dataverse tables that I have. I see I have one here called account. So I can select the tables I want to add, click add, and it's going to build the application for me. So the structure is, again, a little rigid. I don't have a lot of control over how the data is visually appearing here, but it does give me right out of the box here without having to do anything, a ready-to-use application where I can see and manage all of my active accounts from that table. So if I save this now and I click play, it's going to open it up in a new tab. And you see with that one simple button click, I actually have a ready-to-use holistic application for managing records in my accounts table. So not only can I see all of the data stored in the table here, and I have built-in functionality to sort by the different types of columns that we have, and to be able to search for data like Fabricam, and it will filter that for me. So I didn't have to do anything extra. If this was a Canvas app, I would have had to have built all of this in there. I would have had to manually build in the search functionality, the filtering, and all of that. This does it for me. And I even have the ability right out of the box to be able to add new records to this. I have that new button, and all the fields that I have there in that table are showing up here, and I'm able to enter that data, save it. It's a great example of the built-in functionality. I forgot to input some data, so it's enforcing my business rules here that this data is required, so I can fill that in, do a save and close, and that data will be added into my table. So this is a great example of the type of things that we can do with model-driven applications. So far we've covered showing how to create a Canvas application and an example of what a Canvas application looks like, and the same thing for model-driven. Now for Power Apps portals, as I kind of said earlier, that is its own different beast, kind of a way to create a website with the Power Platform, and it does in turn have its own licensing as well. You can create those here from the portal by clicking on this portal from blank. I'm actually not going to show that in this video though, because the process to create, if you're initially creating it for the first time, can take quite a bit of time to set up and get started. And because it's so different, that could really almost warrant its own intro video to Power Apps portal. So I'm actually going to save that for a future video to go into the weeds on what Power Apps portals is like. And if you want some more hands-on experience with creating Power Apps, I highly recommend this Power Platform course that's out on Udacity that Donna Sarkar and Greg Hurlman and Homolomo put together a while back. Kind of takes you through step by step how to get started building applications in Power Apps in the Power Platform. And it's free and out there, and it's a really hands-on instructional course that you can take for free. So as far as next steps, after you get your free demo tenant set up for the Power Platform and Power Apps, I would definitely recommend going through that course and that training material. So I hope you've enjoyed this overview to what Power Apps is. Hopefully it's given you an idea for what you might use it for and helped you better understand the types of applications and the steps that you need to take to get started. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.